Stop what you're doing. Put down your phone. Close that other tab, because what I'm about to tell you will change how you see every beggar, every outstretched hand, every act of charity for the rest of your life. 3 months ago in Lagos, a 15-year-old boy named David went to bed with a full head of hair and woke up completely bald. Not sick, not stressed, not going through chemotherapy, just bald, overnight. The doctors had no explanation. His mother had no answers. But I do. And before you think this is just another urban legend, before you scroll past this story, hit that subscribe button, because by the end of this, you'll understand why every coin you drop into a beggar's palm might be buying something far more precious than you ever imagined. This is the story of Madam Emeka, the woman who discovered that charity could be the cruelest theft of all. And it's the story of one mother who went to war with forces darker than anything you've seen in your worst nightmares to save her child's soul. Are you ready? Because once you hear this, you'll never look at an outstretched hand the same way again. Let me paint you a picture of Makori Market. If you've never been to a West African market, imagine every sound, smell, and color you've ever experienced compressed into one overwhelming symphony of life. Spice vendors calling their prices, children weaving through crowds, music bleeding from radios, and the constant hum of humanity just trying to survive another day. And on the corner, where the main road splits toward the wealthy districts, sits an old woman. Every day, same spot, same tattered clothes, same trembling hand extended toward passers-by. She calls herself Mama Ngozi, though that's not her real name. Her real name is whispered in circles of power, in government offices and corporate boardrooms, in places where money talks and souls are currency. Her real name is Madam Emeka, and she is no beggar. For 20 years, she sat on that corner, collecting more than coins. With every act of charity, with every kind soul who drops spare change into her palm, she takes something else, something invisible, something that belongs to the very core of who they are. You see, Madam Emeka learned long ago that the most valuable things in life aren't money or property. They're the threads that make us human, our strength, our fertility, our confidence, our very life force. And she discovered that desperate people will pay anything to steal those threads from others. Her clients? The most powerful people in Lagos. Politicians who wanted their rivals to lose their voices. Businesswomen who wanted their competitors to lose their beauty. Men who wanted other men to lose their manhood. And Madam Emeka, she provided a service that no amount of money could buy anywhere else. All it took was a coin, a blessing, and a single strand of hair clipped so quickly, so subtly, that the victim never even noticed. Let me tell you about her lair, because that's the only word that fits. Hidden beneath the market, accessed through a trapdoor concealed behind stacked yam sacks, lies a chamber that would make your blood freeze. Shelves lined with hundreds of glass jars, each one labeled with a name, each one containing something that should never be separated from its owner. Hair, yes, but also fingernail clippings, dried tears, even breath captured in sealed vials. And in the center of this nightmare, a shrine to river spirits, older than the city itself, older than memory. The ritual is simple, elegant in its evil. Take the coin, blessed by the victim's good intentions. Take the hair, cut while speaking words of false gratitude. Combine them over flames that burn cold instead of hot, while chanting in languages that predate civilization. And then transfer begins. The victim's life force flows like water into whatever vessel Madam Emeka chooses. Want someone's hair? It grows on your scalp while theirs falls out overnight. Want their fertility? Their womb dries up while yours blooms. Want their masculine power? Well, you get the idea. For 20 years, this system worked perfectly. Madam Emeka grew wealthy beyond imagination, living in a mansion while playing the role of a beggar by day. Her clients achieved power they'd never dreamed possible. And her victims? They just thought they'd had bad luck, genetic problems, stress-related illness. Nobody connected the dots. Nobody except the spirits themselves, who kept a careful tally of every theft, every violation of natural law. Because you see, the universe has a way of balancing the scales, and Madam Emeka's debt was about to come due. David Okoro was everything a mother could hope for in a son. 15 years old, gentle-hearted, gifted athlete, who could make a football dance like it was attached to strings. He was also the kind of boy who couldn't walk past suffering without trying to help. That Tuesday morning, walking to school, he saw Mama Ngozi in her usual spot. His lunch money felt heavy in his pocket, and her outstretched hand looked so frail, so desperate. His mother had raised him to be generous, to remember that we're all one blessing away from needing help ourselves. So he stopped, dropped his coins into her palm, let her place her weathered hand on his head as she mumbled what sounded like a blessing. He even smiled when he felt something tug gently at his hair, thinking it was just the wind. That night, he went to bed excited about the football tryouts the next day. He dreamed of scoring goals, of making his mother proud, of the scholarship that could change their lives. He woke up bald, not thinning, not receding, completely, utterly bald. Like every hair on his head had simply decided to abandon ship during the night. The laughter at school was brutal. Teenagers can be cruel without meaning to, and David's confidence shattered like glass hitting concrete. The boy who'd been preparing for football tryouts couldn't even bring himself to leave the house. But his mother, Mama Rebecca, she knew. Not the details, not the how or the why, but she knew in the way mothers know when something is deeply, supernaturally wrong with their children. Mama Rebecca wasn't just any mother. She was a prayer warrior, the kind of woman who could spend all night on her knees talking to God and wake up more energized than most people feel after a full night's sleep. Her neighbors called her when they needed spiritual backup. Her pastor called her when the church faced problems that couldn't be solved with committee meetings. And 3 nights after David lost his hair, she had the dream that changed everything. Picture this. She's standing in a vast underground chamber filled with the stench of burning hair. Jars line the walls like trophy cases, each one glowing with trapped light that pulses like a heartbeat. And in the center, an ancient woman with eyes like molten gold, feeding David's beautiful curls into flames that burn without giving warmth. Mama Rebecca woke up screaming, not from fear, but from rage, because in that dream, she'd seen her son's life force being devoured, thread by thread, and she'd recognized the face of the woman doing it, Mama Ngozi, the beggar her son had shown mercy to just days before. That's when Mama Rebecca did what any mother would do when someone threatens her child. She went to war. The next morning, she marched to Makori Market with the fury of every mother who'd ever fought for her child burning in her chest. She found Mama Ngozi in her usual spot and for the first time really looked at her. Not at the rags or the trembling hands, but at the eyes. Those eyes were wrong, ancient, calculating, predatory. Eyes that had seen too much, taken too much, stolen too much. "Give me back my son's hair," Mama Rebecca said quietly. Mama Ngozi looked up, and for just a moment the mask slipped. Her smile was full of teeth that seemed too sharp, too white, too many. "I don't know what you mean, my daughter. I'm just a poor woman trying to survive." But when Mama Rebecca tried to speak again, to demand justice, to call out the truth, her throat closed up like an invisible hand was squeezing her windpipe. The words died in her mouth, and she felt something cold and hungry trying to worm its way into her mind. That's when she understood. This wasn't just theft. This was war. And if she wanted to save her son, she'd have to fight with weapons that had nothing to do with the physical world. So she went home, locked her doors, and began the most important battle of her life. For 3 days and 3 nights, Mama Rebecca prayed like her son's soul depended on it. Because it did. She covered her floors with chalk symbols her grandmother had taught her, symbols that had protected their family for generations. She fasted until her stomach felt hollow, until her spirit felt light enough to touch the divine. And every night, the battle grew more intense. Windows rattled without wind. Shadows moved without light to cast them. Her mirrors cracked from corner to corner, showing reflections that weren't quite right, weren't quite human. But something else was happening too. Each prayer weakened Madame Emeka's hold on her stolen power. The woman's luxurious house began to show signs of decay. Her expensive clothes started to fray. Her stolen beauty began to fade, revealing the ancient creature she'd become. Because you see, Madame Emeka had made the same mistake that all thieves make eventually. She got greedy. She'd built an empire on stolen life force, but she'd forgotten that every theft created a connection, a spiritual thread that could be traced back to its source. And Mama Rebecca? She was pulling on every thread at once. But Madame Emeka wasn't going down without a fight. She had clients to satisfy, a reputation to maintain, and one last job that would cement her power forever. The lunar eclipse was coming, and she'd promised her most important clients something special. A mass ritual that would steal the life force of dozens of people at once. The key ingredient? A pure youth strand from a boy whose destiny burned brighter than most, a boy named David. The night of the eclipse, David began walking, not awake, not asleep, but somewhere in between, drawn by invisible strings toward the market. His mother found his bed empty at 3 a.m. and knew immediately where he'd gone. But this time, she was ready. Madame Emeka's hidden chamber blazed with unholy light. The eclipse hung overhead like a wound in the sky, and her most powerful clients surrounded the altar where David lay, bound and unconscious. Politicians, business moguls, religious leaders who'd sold their souls for earthly power, all of them chanting in unison as Madame Emeka raised an obsidian blade above David's head. One cut would sever his destiny thread forever, transferring his brilliant future to whoever paid the highest price. One cut would damn him to a life of emptiness, failure, and despair. That's when Mama Rebecca arrived. She didn't come with weapons or allies or carefully laid plans. She came with prayer beads, a heart full of faith, and the righteous fury of a mother protecting her child. And when she stepped into that chamber, when she opened her mouth and began to pray, the very foundations of hell trembled. What happened next defies every law of physics, every rule of what we think reality can contain. The power that flowed through Mama Rebecca's words wasn't human, wasn't earthly, wasn't something that could be measured or explained. It was pure love, pure protective instinct, pure maternal fury channeled through faith that had been building for generations. The jars lining the walls began to crack, then shatter, releasing streams of light that looked like liquid starlight. Hair, fingernails, tears, breath. Everything that had been stolen over 20 years rushed back toward its rightful owners across the city. Bald men felt their scalps tingle as hair began to grow. Barren women felt their wombs quicken with new life. Men who'd lost their masculine power felt strength returning like rivers flowing back toward the sea. The clients who'd paid for this power aged decades in seconds, their stolen youth abandoning them as justice reclaimed what was stolen. They ran screaming from the chamber, their faces showing their true age, their bodies crumbling under the weight of their crimes. And Madame Emeka, the woman who'd built an empire on theft and suffering? Her luxurious wig caught fire, burning away to reveal a skull covered with ancient scars. Her stolen beauty melted like wax in the sun, showing the world what 20 years of evil had really done to her soul. But even as her power crumbled, even as her clients fled and her stolen wealth turned to ash, she made one last desperate grab for David's life force. That's when Mama Rebecca did something that still gives me chills to think about. She didn't fight Madame Emeka with more violence, more hatred, more darkness. Instead, she forgave her. "I forgive you," she said, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade of pure light. "I forgive you for what you've done to my son, to all the children, to yourself. May God have mercy on your soul." And that forgiveness broke something in Madame Emeka that 20 years of evil couldn't touch. She collapsed, not from defeat, but from the weight of understanding what she'd become. Dawn broke over Lagos like a curtain being pulled back from the world's stage. Across the city, people woke to miracles they couldn't explain. Hair had regrown overnight, fertility had returned, strength had been restored, children laughed, couples embraced, and fathers looked in mirrors and saw themselves whole again. David woke up in his mother's arms, his beautiful curls already starting to grow back. The first thing he said wasn't about his hair or the nightmare he'd lived through. It was, "Mama, I love you." The police found Madame Emeka's lair the next day, though they couldn't explain half of what they discovered. Hundreds of jars filled with organic material that didn't show up clearly on any forensic tests. Financial records that connected her to some of the most powerful people in the country. And the woman herself, sitting catatonic in the center of it all, muttering the same phrase over and over, "The coins burn, the coins burn." Her clients? One by one, their corruption was exposed. Political careers ended overnight. Business empires collapsed under mysterious circumstances. Religious leaders found their congregations abandoning them as their true natures became impossible to hide. Justice, it turned out, had a way of balancing the scales even when human courts failed. But here's where this story gets truly unsettling. Here's the part that made me lose sleep for weeks after I first heard it. 6 months later, after Madame Emeka had been committed to a psychiatric facility, after her clients had fallen from grace, after the city had moved on to new scandals and forgotten tragedies, a new beggar appeared in Makori Market, young this time, maybe 16, 17 years old, pretty face, sad eyes, hand outstretched for coins. And when people dropped their spare change into her palm, when they let her place her small hand on their heads in blessing, some of them noticed a familiar golden glint in her eyes. Some of them felt the slightest tug on their hair as she whispered words of gratitude. Because here's what I learned researching the story. Here's what keeps me awake at night. Evil doesn't die. It doesn't get defeated and disappear into the sunset like in fairy tales. It adapts, it evolves, it finds new faces to wear and new hearts to corrupt. The power that flowed through Madam Emeka didn't vanish when she fell. It went looking for a new host, a new vessel, a new way to turn human kindness into spiritual theft. And somewhere in Lagos tonight, a young girl sits on a street corner, her hand extended toward strangers, learning that every act of charity can be an opportunity for the cruelest kind of theft. The question isn't whether you believe this story. The question is, the next time you see someone asking for help, the next time you drop coins into an outstretched palm, will you look at their eyes first? Will you notice if something golden glints in the darkness behind their gratitude? Will you remember that sometimes the most innocent face can hide the hungriest soul? David is 18 now, about to graduate secondary school with a full football scholarship to university. His hair grew back thicker and more beautiful than before. His confidence returned stronger than ever. His mother still prays every night, but now her prayers are filled with gratitude instead of desperation. But she also taught her son something that every parent should teach their children. Kindness is a virtue, but wisdom is a survival skill. Help those who need help, yes. But look at their eyes first. Trust your instincts. And remember that sometimes the most dangerous predators are the ones who look like victims. Because in a world where souls can be bought and sold, where destinies can be transferred like property, where ancient evil wears modern faces, the only protection we have is awareness, wisdom, and the kind of love that's willing to fight for what matters most. The coins in your pocket right now, they're just metal, but in the wrong hands, with the wrong intentions, they could buy something far more precious than anything money should ever be able to purchase. Your hair, your strength, your future, your very self. The price of charity, it turns out, should never be your soul. But somewhere tonight, someone is learning that not everyone asking for help deserves it. And someone else is discovering that the cruelest theft is the one disguised as a blessing. Look at their eyes. Always look at their eyes. And if you see gold where there should be brown or black or blue, walk away. Just walk away. Your soul is worth more than any coin you could ever drop into any palm. Remember that, please. If this story made you think twice about the next outstretched hand you see, if it reminded you that wisdom and kindness must walk hand in hand, if it showed you that love can triumph over evil, but only through faith, courage, and the willingness to fight for what matters most, then share this story. Subscribe to hear more tales that blur the line between the natural and supernatural world. Because in a universe where ancient powers still walk among us, where evil adapts faster than we can recognize it, the only weapons we have are awareness, community, and the shared knowledge that keeps us all safe. The choice is always ours. The question is, what price are you willing to pay for your kindness? And what are you willing to fight for to protect the ones you love? Look at their eyes. Trust your instincts. And remember, the most beautiful predators are often the ones who look like they need saving. Stay safe out there. The world is stranger than you think.